This is Elena from Birth High, and today I'm speaking with IVF mama Allie Sandler as she shares her two birth stories, a gender reveal oopsie, and a game-changing gift she received from her in-laws.
I am Allie Sandler, and I am 37 years old, and I live in South Denver area and grew up in Denver as well. And my husband and I started trying I have three children. My daughter, Cora, is 5, and I have twin boys, Jordan and Logan, that are 20 months old. And my journey to having children started when my husband and I had been married for 3 years. And we're both equally excited to try to have a child. And I never really thought that it would be difficult for us to conceive because my mom, I just heard from her how easy it was for her to get pregnant with both me and my sister. So I kind of went into it with this notion that my mom's very fertile. It won't be a problem for me. And so I just remember every month being so excited trying, and then the huge letdown when I wasn't pregnant and I got my period. And we tried really hardcore for about 6 months and it just wasn't happening. I was doing my basal temp and talked to my OB/GYN and was trying to do all the trackers and trying to measure my mucus and all of those things. And really all of it just was super stressful for me. I feel like I could never really pinpoint when I was ovulating. And about 10 months after we started trying naturally, we both decided to go and get tested, both him and I. And that's when we kind of learned that he had some issues, and that getting pregnant naturally was not going to be easy or much of an option. And so just a really emotional moment for both of us, mostly him, really, because he knew that's all I wanted was a child, and he felt like he couldn't give that to me. But we did some research and ended up going with CCRM. And so we went to our initial consult there and learned that IVF would be the best route for us to go with kind of the tests that came back and the issues that we had. And so went through a slew of tests. We started right away, really. I think within 2 weeks of our initial appointment, I had already started going through all the testing that was needed for the process. I feel like the testing took a good month, lots of blood work and ultrasounds and some testing for him as well. And I would say probably a month and a half, 2 months after our initial appointment, we went ahead and did our first round of IVF, and we did a fresh transfer based on our age and the issues that we had. That was the best option for us. And we were only able to get 5 eggs at the time that I had the procedure done, which is not a high number at all. And all 5 of those ended up making it to a day 5. We decided to transfer 2 embryos, 2 of the highest grades, and I don't even remember how they're graded, but so we transferred 2 and then had the excruciating 10-day wait to find out if I was pregnant. I never took an at-home pregnancy test. I was too scared of seeing a negative result. So I waited until day 10 and went into CCRM and took the blood test, and sure enough, came back that we were pregnant. I was shocked because I had done a lot of research and talked to a lot of people about IVF, and it rarely works your first time. So just felt super lucky. And then of course was wondering if we were going to have twins or not. So just remember going into the first ultrasound nervous and excited, but just found 1 heartbeat, which was actually kind of a relief at that point. And then the next really big thing I can remember, I never had morning sickness. I was just excited, like super excited. And because of the IVF medications that I was still taking and took to prepare, I was pretty bloated. So I started showing pretty much kind of right away. Our friends and family, well, not really our friends, but our family knew that we were going through IVF. So it wasn't much of a surprise to them that we were pregnant. And then the next really big thing that I remember getting pregnant with my daughter was I went into the 18-week ultrasound at my OBGYN, and she said, I think I can tell you the gender. Do you want to know? I said, well, no, my husband and I have this like gender dinner reveal planned with our parents. I can't find out without him, but I am not a patient person. So I said, yes, please write it down and put it in an envelope and I'll take it home. So I took it home and I was like, Greg, we have to open this. I can't wait. He's like, Allie, in like 3 weeks, we're going to have this dinner and we'll find out. And it was right around Christmas. I was like, no, we just have to look now. And then at Christmas, they can like open a present. So anyway, I ended up opening the envelope. He looked at the envelope and it said boy. Well, I told you earlier, we have a daughter. So they were wrong. So we wrapped up like a blue ornament for Christmas and both of our families opened it and said, hey, we're having a boy. And then we went in for our, I think it was at 21 weeks for the anatomy scan. And they were like, yeah, actually you're having a girl. So that was kind of shocking to us, but a fun story to tell now. And gave my husband some PTSD from that experience with our twins. But the rest of the pregnancy was really smooth. I didn't have any complications. Around 35 weeks, I learned that she was breech. And so we scheduled a C-section at that point for 40 weeks, I think like a day shy of 40 weeks. My sister-in-law was also pregnant at the same time as I was, and a couple months ahead of me, and she had done version where they try to flip the baby if they're head down, not head down. And it worked for her. So my doctor was like, you could try version at 37 weeks. It's 50% of the time it's successful. So I went to the hospital with my husband early in the morning at 37 weeks to do version. They don't medicate you for it because it can cause early labor. And it was the most painful thing I've ever been through in my life. 2 doctors were pushing on my belly as hard as they could, trying to turn her. Her butt was down instead of her head, and she did not even move a centimeter. So it just was foreshadowing of how stubborn she is. But it was extremely, extremely painful. And then at 39 and a half weeks, I started having very light contractions and went to a regular appointment. And she said, yep, you need to go to the hospital. We're probably she's still breech, but we'll probably do the C-section tonight. So my husband met me at the hospital, and sure enough, when we got there, there were no contractions. So they sent us back home, which was frustrating. And when I went in on our scheduled C-section date, it was a 7 a.m. C-section. We had to be there at 5. So I just remember being nervous, but excited, extremely tired going into it. And I had a C-section. It was painless and it was fine. I had had many surgeries before. So, and it was extremely difficult breastfeeding. She didn't have any NICU time or health complications. So we stayed in the hospital like 3 nights, I think. I remember at her home. I had an extremely hard time breastfeeding with her. I just remember sitting up in her nursery and crying my eyes out every time I would feed her, and she would scream. So I enlisted the help of a lactation consultant a couple weeks after she was born. And I remember the first time I talked to her, my breast had just gotten super hard, like super painful. And so she kind of helped me on how to work through that. But I'm really sad looking back. I think I contacted her too late at that point. And breastfeeding didn't really become an option for me after that. I exclusively pumped, but had to supplement a lot with formula. And I was a very OCD, like very weird pumper. I would pump hardly anything because I didn't have much of a supply. But in my mind, I knew I was going back to work when she was 7 months. And so I wanted, for some reason, to freeze milk. With that, for some reason in my mind, that was a big deal for me. And so I would pump, not much, 2 ounces a time probably, and basically freeze most of that or half of it, which looking back on it, I wish that I had given it to her when her brain was forming and needed it. But anyway, I would sometimes mix it with formula, but most of the time I would freeze it for when I went back to work. And I pumped like every 2 hours through 9 months. It was horrible. I remember pumping in the car, driving places and being at family dinner and leaving the table to pump, doing all this pumping, but really not getting much of anything out. So that was hard. I didn't have any postpartum depression with her. I just, other than being tired, it really was a pretty easy, smooth sailing. She was healthy. I was healthy. The C-section recovery was easy. I had no problems with it. And yeah, I went back to work at 7 months. So that kind of is my journey getting pregnant with my daughter. And then
Do you mind if I chime in with a couple questions before we move on? Okay, awesome. So, when you were pregnant with your daughter, did you have any like hopes or dreams for how you wanted the birth to go before you had, found out that she was breech and a C-section was probably forthcoming?
yeah, I wanted a vaginal birth. I wanted a medicated vaginal birth because I don't do well with pain. Which I think is why I did version, because I did want that. But then, with her still being breech and after the super painful version I went through, I just kind of accepted the C-section part of it. I don't know if this is too much information, but something that really surprised me, I remember with her, with the C-section, was just the amount of like bleeding that I had after. And I had heard about that happening with like vaginal births, but I didn't expect that with a C-section. So I don't know, like for future moms, it's the same amount, but I kind of wish that I had known that going into it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So for your prenatal care and your provider, how did you go about selecting your OB?
Oh, so my OBGYN, I had gone to them, I don't know, since I moved back to Denver from college. They were located at Rose. And I had just gone to them forever and liked them. So just stuck with them. I switched doctors there a few times, but found one I really liked, and it was convenient and easy, and they took our insurance. So to me, that wasn't ever something I like researched or looked at other options. I guess, trusted the healthcare system. And then as far as prenatal care, I followed like all the, rules, like didn't eat lunch meat, didn't drink caffeine, didn't drink coffee, took a prenatal vitamin every day, tried to eat as healthy as I could. I didn't really have any food aversions, or I remember craving like pickles later down the line, but everything was pretty normal. I got really big fast and was very big with her, but other than that, everything was good.
Awesome. And then, so right after the C-section, did they give her to you right away? Or like, what were those first kind of few moments like when you got to meet your daughter?
Yeah, so I just remember hearing her crying right away, and that was just a huge relief. And then they kind of took her away and cleaned her off. My husband was there watching, so I felt, at ease about that. I don't remember too much about that part of it, because I was, drugged up with a C-section, but they took her away, cleaned her up, weighed her, and then brought her to me and like did some skin to skin later on my chest. And then took me to recovery, and pretty much right away in recovery, it was like baby to boob right away. So I remember that.
And did they have you room in with her, or did they
Yeah, so
the nursery?
that's something that we laugh about looking back, because they offered several times a day to like, we'll take her to the nursery so that you can rest. We'll take her to the nursery. And we were very adamant about like, well, we have to learn how to take care of her on our own when we get home. So no, we're fine. We're gonna just keep her in our room. And we did. And looking back on it, we're like, yeah, no, we should have like sent her to the nursery and gotten some sleep.
Hindsight 2020, right?
Yeah, totally.
Wonderful. Well, is there anything else about Cora's pregnancy or delivery that you want to touch on before we get into your twin birth?
No, I mean, it was relatively easy and got lucky with her being healthy. I didn't have any problems.
Great. All right. So how did babies 2 and 3 come about?
So my husband was pretty content having one child, but I just like, and I was too, but I really wanted her to have a sibling. We both have siblings. And so that was important for me. Um, but knowing about our fertility struggles, the thought of IVF again, and mostly financially, was tough to grasp. So once we kind of got on the same page, she was 3, and I knew that I didn't want to have children too far apart, but also not super close together either, because I wanted to enjoy Cora and spend time with her. So right about when she was 3, we went back to the same doctor at CCRM. We had 3 embryos that were of a high grade frozen. And so I felt a little bit at ease knowing that I wouldn't have to start the process completely over again because we did already have the embryos. So I wouldn't have to go through a retrieval. But I did not expect to have to redo all of my testing again. So that was kind of a bummer. But once we got through all the testing, I started the injections, the hormone injections again. I knew what to expect with that this time around. So I just, knew what to expect. I remember this time around being much more nervous and anxious about IVF than with my daughter, because it was like a last shot for us just financially. It was like, well, we're going to do it one more time. And if it doesn't work, we're just going to have a wonderful life with one child and adventure a lot. So it was like, this was it, our last time. So because it was our last time, I really pushed for us to transfer 2 embryos again, knowing that we transferred 2 with Cora, and we joke that she ate one. Like it didn't work. In my mind, I never ever imagined that both would take. And they did. So we transferred 2, had followed the bed rest rules, the whole 9 yards. 2 days before my blood test, because I didn't take a at-home pregnancy test, I waited for the blood test at CCRM. I started having bleeding, and I remember we were on family vacation, and we did not tell our family that we were doing IVF again, and so we didn't want people to know. Just if it hadn't worked, I couldn't imagine like sharing that with them. So we were with his whole family, and I'm having this bleeding, but we didn't want to tell them, and I'm like hysterically crying and upset, and so that was tough. But went in for the blood test and got the call later that day that in fact we were pregnant, and the numbers that initially came back were really high. Still did not think anything of it. I from the start, like after our transfer, I felt lightheaded. I felt sick. I never threw up. I just didn't have much of an appetite. And so my husband kind of knew right off the bat, like, man, it's twins. It's got to be twins. Like, this didn't happen for you with Cora. And the whole time I'm like, no, it's not. For sure, it's not. It didn't take 2 last time. And with COVID, he could not come to appointments with me. So when you do fertility, you stay on with your fertility clinic until 10 weeks of pregnancy. So I had many ultrasounds with CCRM first before going to my OBGYN. So at 6 weeks, my first ultrasound, I went into CCRM by myself because Greg was not there. He was working. And they're doing the ultrasound. And in fact, they're like, there's 2 heartbeats. I didn't say a word to them for a good 5 minutes. I was shocked, which I shouldn't have been, right? Because we transferred 2 embryos and signed paperwork saying it's a high risk, it could happen, but I was shocked. I wanted to go home and surprise my husband some creative way. So I didn't get to do that with Cora, but he started texting me like, how'd it go? And when I didn't respond to him, he knew. He started texting me, I know it's twins. You're not responding. I know it's twins. So I had to call him and tell him, yeah, it's twins. I wouldn't say he was excited at all. Like, twins is not something that you willingly want to sign up for when you've already had a child. It took a long time for both of us to wrap our head around it. We did not want to tell our families until 12 weeks, but I was showing from the get-go, from the start. And they kind of already knew. So at 8 weeks, we told our families. They were shocked because they didn't know that we were even doing IVF again. And then my mom got mad because she was like, why didn't you tell me? I could have supported you. We did a blood test for the gender because when I got pregnant, I'm trying to think, I was 35 with the twins. And so I was considered high risk pregnancy with my age and then twins. So they did the blood test at 11 weeks to, I could tell the gender, but also to rule out other genetic disabilities and stuff. So I remember getting the call and them telling me it was two boys. And I really questioned the accuracy of that blood test with twins, and remembering with Cora that they had said she was a boy. Greg had a lot of PTSD from that and really wasn't sure if those test results were for sure. So we cautiously, around 12 weeks, did a little gender reveal with our families. We had Cora make some cupcakes and put like blue in them, nothing fancy, and gave them to our like families whenever they came over. And then at 18 weeks, we had to go see maternal fetal medicine, like the high risk doctor, and get some extra scans. And they confirmed that it was two boys. Greg was with me for that appointment, so it was nice for him to like see it and not have to question it. And for sure, this is boys. And I had a very healthy pregnancy with them. Oh, I should have mentioned though, in the early weeks, I remember I was 8 weeks with them. And I woke up at 2 a.m. at 8 weeks pregnant to blood, like a pool of blood on my bed and everywhere. And I went to the bathroom and like had blood clots. So we called his parents to come over at 2 a.m. to stay with Cora and went to the ER. I thought I was having a miscarriage and I was beside myself. But it was just, I forget the letters, HSG maybe, or HCG. It was like a scab in there basically in my uterus. So I had quite a bit of bleeding through 15 weeks and had to stay on the hormone injections for longer. And so that was really terrifying and very scary. I had a lot of extra appointments just to monitor that, but the blood terrified me every time. But surprisingly, they were okay, other than like being really big and showing a lot. I didn't, past like 8 weeks, I didn't have any morning sickness other than feeling a little bit lightheaded and losing my appetite a little bit. I did a prenatal vitamin, followed again all the rules of like not having lunch meat and caffeine. Went back to the same OBGYN that I saw with Cora. Because I'd had a C-section with her and it was twins. She said, we're going to do a C-section again. Is that okay with you? And it actually was, because I wasn't all about having twins vaginally and knew that a C-section recovery was easy. I, at 32 weeks, got COVID being pregnant with the boys, and that was terrible. I got it from my husband. He got it from work. That was really terrible. And I just remember being so scared that the babies would be hurt. So I went to the hospital and they checked them and they were fine, but I was so sick. It was awful. And then my OBGYN told me, like, from 32 weeks on, you need to be prepared that like you could have the babies, twins can come early. And so I was just very mentally prepared for NICU time and ready for them to come early. I was completely miserable from 32 weeks on. So every day I would be like, it's fine if they come, it's fine, it's fine. But they didn't. And our scheduled C-section was at 37 and a half weeks. And I went to our scheduled date at 37 and a half weeks. And having a planned C-section when you already have a child is really nice, because she knew where she would be. Grandparents were with her, like there were no surprises. I was terrified for the C-section because I was just terrified that they would come out not breathing and need to go to the NICU. But it was fine. The C-section was quick. I did have them take my tubes out at the same time because we were not about to have like a miracle surprise baby after having 3 children. They took the boys out quickly, and then they took my tubes out quickly after. I was so sick from the anesthesia this time around, which I was not with Cora. So that really surprised me. I was throwing up in the operating room. I was lightheaded. I was shaking. It was not a great experience in the operating room the second time around. I remember hearing both of the boys crying, but once again, they take them away and clean them off and weigh them. And then my husband brought them over to me and I was able to one at a time put them on my chest. Then they wheeled me off to recovery, and as I am throwing up, are shoving both of the boys on my breast to breastfeed. To which I finally had to look at them and say, like, I'm sick right now. I can't, like, I need you to wait. So then they kind of did. Learning from Cora, when they offered to take them to the nursery, we took them up on that 100% offer. So we did have them, like, at night, take them away to the nursery so that we could sleep for 2 or 3 hours. And then when they needed to be fed, they brought them back. I was really adamant about breastfeeding them because I didn't get that experience with Cora. And I really fought for that, and spacing on the word, advocated for that for myself. So in the hospital, I demanded to see their lactation consultants. And I saw them several times and asked a lot of questions. I really wanted to tandem feed. That was like a huge goal of mine, feeding both at the same time. And so I worked on that a lot in the hospital and exclusively breastfed them while we were there for those 4 days and 3 nights. Brought them home, and 2 days later took them to their checkup or first doctor's appointment, and learned that they were like super underweight, had lost a lot of weight. And so the doctor told me, you need to start supplementing. And because I supplemented with my daughter, I really didn't have much of a problem with that. I remember with Cora, I bawled my eyes out the first time I had to give her formula, but this time around that was not an issue for me. So I continued to breastfeed them, but also would offer them bottle after. So I was pumping or breastfeeding, pumping, bottle, triple feeding. And then once again, I contacted my lactation consultant, same one I'd used with Cora, and she came over and worked with me on tandem feeding and just getting a schedule down that worked. My nipples were super torn up, so she offered me some relief in saying, like, it's okay to take a break, like, breastfeed this time, but then next time pump instead. So I kind of would alternate, which was good because it allowed my breasts to heal. Tandem feeding ultimately did not work out. It was horrible. It was really hard to not have any hands while breastfeeding and have my daughter running around. But I am proud to say that I did breastfeed them to 6 months. 6 months was my goal. I mean, probably from like 3 or 4 months on, they were getting breast, each boy like twice a day. And then towards the end, it was once a day, but I still like got that bonding experience to breastfeed them. I pumped, I did not want to exclusively pump like I did with Cora. I was like, I'm not having the alpha experience. So I pumped when I could and how much I wanted to. My supply was much better, and they have not had any health issues. We got super lucky having twins, like carrying them that far and not having NICU time.
Yeah, that's amazing. 37.5 weeks. Wow.
Yeah, so Jordan, twin A, weighed the same as Cora at birth, which was 6'7". And then Logan weighed 5'9", which is very big for twins. So I'll send you the pictures, but that being said, you can imagine I was really big.
Yeah, wow, wow. So what was it like, you're coming home with twins, you have another young daughter, like, how did you manage all of that? I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And my husband is a pilot, so he is gone 3 or 4 days a week. Thankfully, he had the first month off. But the best advice I would give to any parent, especially twin parents or triplet parents, is my in-laws gifted us a night nurse. And she came, we had her for 2 months. And at first she came 3 nights a week. And she would come at 10 p.m. and leave at 7 a.m. We set those hours. And then, after a month, we went down to like 2 nights a week, and then eventually down to 1 night a week. But she ended up becoming a good friend of mine. She's amazing. She was a nurse, and she got them on a feeding schedule because they didn't have NICU time. They weren't on any kind of a schedule. That was pretty overwhelming to have to figure that out. But she came the second night they were home and got them on a feeding schedule and got them on a napping schedule and got them on a sleep schedule. The first month that we had her, I regret it, but I still went into their room and pumped. Now looking back, I would have just slept because that was the whole point in having her. But she was a lifesaver. Just the advice she gave and the help that she gave us was amazing. And so that was a huge help. I don't think that, I mean, we would have done it because we have to, but like it would have been a lot harder without her help. My daughter was in full day preschool at a daycare center, so I could take her early and pick her up later. And I did a lot, especially my husband worked, but it was very hard having twins. Like it still is really hard because they're mobile, but the nights, they were hard. I'm really grateful that I had a rock star husband and we would both wake up together and both feed one, because feeding them both at the same time, breastfeeding one bottle, like it was really hard. I don't paint a pretty, like I don't pretend. It was really hard, and it still is really hard balancing three and all of their needs, but you get through it. You have to, you don't have a choice. So
Yeah, that's incredible about the night nurse. So how did you find her, or did your in-laws find her?
yeah, so it was actually my in-laws' idea. And when they first started talking about it, I don't know if annoyed is the right word, but we were like, yeah, whatever, like, whatever, but then graciously ended up accepting it because that was their gift to us. And it was one of my mother-in-law's friend's daughter had used her. And we did not, I remember hearing about maternal instincts, but we did not research other people. We did not call her references. We met her in person and asked a few questions, but we were like, any help is better than none. I'm also in a twin mom group, which I should have mentioned earlier. It's called Mothers of Multiples Society. I have a friend that had twins that are my daughter's age, and she recommended that I join. So at 17 weeks pregnant, I joined the group and got so much advice and so many clothes and so many tips from them. They have an expectant mothers group too. So I remember going to a Zoom, because it was during COVID, it wasn't in person, but like a Zoom meeting, and they had somebody from Maternal Instinct speak at that. I was probably like 24 weeks pregnant at the time. And so I had like heard about night nannies from that. And a lot of the twin moms said, you need one. And so we just went with her. I don't know. And she's great. And I've recommended her to every single person. And I would not use a big company like Maternal Instincts. I would hands down use like a single person that's gone out on their own.
That's incredible. Wow. Is that twin moms group that you're a part of, is that local to Denver, or is that a national group?
Um, they do have them in other states, but there's one in Colorado, one in Denver. And it's primarily, I mean, you can Google it and they have a website, but it's primarily run through Facebook. So you have a Facebook page and you pay $35 a year. And basically what that offers you is they have all sorts of events. Like in December, they do a Santa. So like I signed up my family to go meet Santa. They do like mom's nights out. They do, I don't know, they offer all sorts of support and help. They have like an angel tree for any struggling moms during Christmas that need gifts. They provide diapers and formula to moms that need it. On Facebook, it's like everyday parents of all age twins and triplets are asking questions, and you can just get on there and comment and answer back. Like today, somebody was asking about car seats. So it's just a very supportive group. I feel like having twins, it is a totally different ball game, and getting together for these moms nights out once a month when I do go. I don't know the moms, but like we just have a connection. So it's just comforting to get together. And like I remember going to the first mom's night out when the boys were like 9 weeks old and my parents were babysitting, and all the moms were like, oh my God, we don't even know how you're here right now. And I was like, I need to get out and I need to like pick your brains and ask you all these questions. And it was just a memory I have distinctly meeting up with them for the first time. It is an amazing group.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's so important to have that kind of support system. So that's great you were able to find that.
Yes.
So I always like to ask if there is anything you kind of wish you would have known actually going into either of your pregnancies, or like advice you would give, to your former self or, other new moms, anything of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, especially moms that do go the IVF route or struggle with fertility, which is a lot more than you would think. I would say don't be shy about it. With my daughter, I was pretty closed off. We were almost kind of embarrassed about it, but later down the line, the more that I started talking about it, the more I learned like other people had struggled with it too, and it's like therapeutic to talk about it. And now I enjoy talking about it. Um, just like being a twin mom is a special bond. I feel like going through fertility, that's another like bond that you have with people. So I wish that I would have talked about it to more people and not been shy about it and embarrassed about it. Um, I wish with Cora that I had advocated for myself more early on with breastfeeding in the hospital. And I did see a lactation person, but I didn't know what to ask. I didn't know how to do it. And with the boys I knew, so I advocated. So I wish with her I would have advocated for myself more in the first week at the hospital and a lot harder. I don't know. I think having a mom group is key. And it's kind of special having a mom group that you didn't go to high school with or like you weren't already friends with. It's just a different connection. And I think that's really important. And with Cora, I wish that I'd had that. I joined a program called Fit for Mom, and they do mom baby workout classes. And so after I had Cora, I went and did that. And strongly recommend, like, that was so important in my recovery. And I think that's what kept me out of postpartum, was getting active again and just getting myself back and not losing myself completely. Can't think of anything else.
Yeah, those are great. And you've mentioned a lot of really helpful resources. And I also like to ask if there's like any, products that you have just like leaned on and loved throughout your pregnancies or postpartum periods, that have worked really well for you.
Yeah, unfortunately, my biggest thing that I love and would buy everybody for their baby shower has been recalled, but I don't care. I would still recommend it. Is like, especially with twins, it's like the Boppy lounger pillow. So it's like a Boppy pillow with the middle filled in, if you know what I'm talking about. And with the twins, I would put them both in there and then feed them at the same time. With Cora, I would have it on the kitchen counter while I was making dinner, and she would sit in it, and we used it till like 6 months. That is like a must have. And I know it's been recalled, but you can still find them on Facebook Marketplace and find them on Craigslist and stuff. That was a big must have for me. I think it's important to find the right pump that works for you too. I think, like I said, if I would have known more with Cora and advocated for myself, I might have found a pump that would have gotten more milk out. With the boys, my lactation consultant helped me find one that worked really well. Trying to think. I don't know if it's a product, but like I said, now I instruct the Fit for Mom classes 2 days a week as an instructor at Wash Park. And I would say, like, finding a way to be active in your postpartum recovery is huge, because your body's gone through so many changes, but also when you release endorphins, it's like therapeutic. So I would say that while it's not a product, I think it's important to intentionally build in time for yourself to be active, whether that be walking or working out or whatever that looks like for you. Was really important.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Well, wonderful. Is there anything else about any of your, I guess, either of your pregnancies or your deliveries or postpartum periods that you didn't touch on that you want to include today, Allie?
Um, no, I mean, sometimes I look back on it and wish that I would have enjoyed it a little more and not wished the time away so much, because I know that I won't be pregnant again unless it's like a 0.5% chance that I could get pregnant naturally with no tubes. So I know that I will not be pregnant again. And sometimes I miss feeling those movements. So looking back, I wish maybe that I would have slowed down and enjoyed it more instead of rushing to like, I want to have this kid. But not other than that, no, I think it was a journey, and I still like find it hard to believe that I had to do IVF because nobody else in my family has had to do that. When I was pregnant with Cora, my sister-in-law was pregnant at the same time, and she was 2 months ahead of me, and that was very hard. I was just so jealous, and watching her get pregnant easily while I was doing IVF was really, really hard. So I think a lot of women feel that. And I would just say that you should like find somebody to talk to about those feelings, because I didn't. And it was terrible for my mental state.
Thank you, Allie, for sharing your story, and to our viewers for watching. If you have a birth story you'd like to share, visit www.birthhigh.com and click Share Your Story. We'll see you next time.